don't fall asleep. We won't allow that today. We have a busy program. We have 5 speakers. Each speaker will present for about 15 minutes, and then we'll save our questions to the end, okay? So make sure you mark down your questions for the first speakers so that they get their fair share of questions. We will go, let me see, this panel is panel 6. It is AI4D as an enabler of the SDGs. Now, as you know, the SDGs refer to this UN Sustainable Development Goals. It's a challenge that the United Nations has put forward to record significant progress in 17 areas of human development. Today, unfortunately, we will only address 4 of them. We'll address SDG 3, which is good health and well-being, with Dr. Idri. And we'll talk about SDG 2, which is achieve food security and improved nutrition and promote sustainable agriculture by Ms. Shridowski. And SDG 8 will be promote inclusive and sustained economic growth, full and productive employment, and decent work for all, with Ms. Klanova, who is online. And then we have SDG 16. And that is promote peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development, provide access to justice for all, and build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. And for that, we have 2 presenters. We have Ms. Alpine Korekian and Ms. Nibal Idelve. Close enough? Okay. Very good. I want to, at this point also, I would just want to say that each SDG is complicated, okay? And it requires each one a conference of its own. We are limited to 15 minutes. So with that, we have to accept these frustrations and move forward with the understanding that we'll get some of the best presentations, the best information from some of the leaders in the international community. Perhaps AI will help us out with all of this. My name is Arthur Westneat, and I am a senior development economist, and I work with Imad Tinawi and the Engage AI team. I have a 40-year plus, I have 40 years of experience working in a wide variety of development issues. My primary work experience is with the informal sector in Francophone West and Central Africa. With that in mind, I am reminded that 60 to 80% of African economies still operate in the informal sector. So we have to bear in mind that a lot of what we have here is artificial to what is really out there in the development world. I also want to congratulate the presenters this morning. They presented a remarkably well-organized and informative and challenging set of presentations, particularly about the Morocco's new development model. And then in the presentation, the second presentation about the cities presented what the real challenges were for us going forward. So I want to congratulate them all on that successful presentation. And with your indulgence, I would like to refer you back to the Morocco's new development model. And it is a most excellent document, and if you haven't had the chance to read it, please do. And importantly, I want to cite the following 4 points. The MDM provides for a citizen-centered approach to growth. It provides a clear commitment to sustainable development. It looks for a modernized and responsive public administration and good governance, and it promotes a proactive search for new solutions and opportunities. So we'll set that as the tone, and before we begin, I'd like to thank Mr. Ahmed Jafari, who is our reporter. Is Ahmed here? No, he has not arrived. Well, he will arrive, I'm sure. With that, I would like to begin by introducing our first speaker, Dr. Idri. And if I have my paper here, there it is, I will. Dr. Idri is going to talk about health, SDG 3, La Santé Avant Tout, of course. He is a full professor at the Computer Science and Systems Analysis School at Mohammed V, and affiliate professor at the Department of Modeling, Simulation, and Data Analysis at Mohammed VI. His PhD is in Cognitive and Computer Sciences from the University of Quebec, Montreal. He is principal investigator of several leading national and international projects and the recipient of multiple awards for excellence. He is an associate editor of the BMC Medical Informatics and Decision-Making Journal and Scientific African. You will also find that he is widely published. And with that, Dr. Idri, I would like to welcome you to give the first presentation.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you very much for the introduction. So first, I would like to thank the organizers of this excellent event for inviting me to talk about this interesting and hot topic subject, which is the use of artificial intelligence, and particular for me will be machine learning in e-health. So since this is only 15 minutes, so I am not pretending that I will present an overview, an exhaustive overview of what have been done as the application of machine learning or in general artificial intelligence in the medical field, but just to share with you some experiences that in 3 projects in which I was involved as the PI, 2 of them are related to the use of machine learning in 2 sub-domains of medicine, which is cardiology and breast cancer. And the other one is more related to digitalization in for reproductive health services. So the idea is to share with you the finding for the project that has been closed and what we are in the process for the project that it is currently in progress. Okay, so this is the agenda of my presentation. So first it will be the knowledge data discovery process, which is very important and consists of 3 steps: data preparation, and knowledge modeling, and the use of knowledge evaluation and interpretability of this knowledge. I will put a focus on data preprocessing task, and I will explain why, because this is one of the most interesting steps in the KDD process. But in most cases, this is one of the steps that we didn't deal with enough deeply enough. And then data preprocessing and machine learning for the 2 projects that I will present later, and the 4th project, which is the use of ICT for reproductive health services in Morocco. Okay, so this is the knowledge data discovery process. So it consists of 3 steps. The 1 step is data preprocessing or data preparation, which consists of dealing with all the challenges that we face in data, like noise, like outliers, like missing values, like feature selection, feature reduction, in order to prepare their data to be ready for discovering the knowledge from this data. And as you know, this is very important because garbage in, garbage out. So if you have not data with high level of quality, you cannot have useful knowledge in the following step. The 2nd step is the modeling step, which is the most commonly well-known step in the KDD process, which consists of using some machine learning techniques. It depends if you have an objective of classification, an objective of regression, clustering, or association, depending on the business question that you are dealing with in this project. And the last step is knowledge verification, validation, and interpretability. This is also a very interesting step. Like verification, are we building the model right? Validation, are we building the right model? And you know, sometimes you can build the model right, but this is not the right model, because the right model is more related to the use, to different stakeholders for the users. So sometimes you develop the model right. It depends on you as a data scientist, but at the end, this model is not, for example, easy to use, is not easy to interpret, so it will not be the right model for the different users. Also, this is another focus in this step, which is very important, a hot topic now in machine learning, is about interpretability and explainability of the model. So in many cases, we are dealing, for example, in medicine with doctors, with nurses that are not from the, I can guess, from the mathematical background. So they didn't understand the modeling of the science of your model. So you need to provide them some kind of interpretation. And this is a lot of techniques that have been developed in machine learning, global interpretability techniques like using, for example, decision trees or other. And there are also local interpretability technique, agnostic or specific. So this is an interesting topic in machine learning. There is another, maybe we use it in the same, for the same meaning, difference between interpretability and explainability, but for our community in machine learning is not the same, because interpretability is related more to if you are able, as a human, to predict what it should be the outcome of the model. But explainability is more related to the science of the model. You know, in a model like, for example, artificial neural network, which is based on the biological neuron, or you have, for example, KNN, canary sniper, which is based on similarity mutual. This is a science behind the model. So you need to explain the science for the user. Okay, so this is some statistics which are published recently within the community of machine learning. And in this statistic, you can see what is the steps that is very, very important. So as you can notice in this figure, you have data preparation, which is about 30 to 70% of effort and time that is dedicated for all the process. I mean, for the data preparation, for the KDD process. So this is what it is very important, as I said, garbage in, garbage out. So we should deal in this phase with all the challenges that you can face in your data. Okay, so this is an important slide that you should keep in mind, in which you have all the process with most of the data that I can explain in this slide. So first you have data. Maybe you can have different kind of data. For example, in medical, maybe sometimes you have clinical data, but you have images like, for example, MRI, you can have signal like EEG or ECG and so on. So you can have different kind of sources of data. So first you should integrate them, and know how you will use them in the KDD process. So first you should data cleaning. Data cleaning means that you should noise elimination. Example of noise elimination can be incorrect data, so you should correct them. Dealing with outlier, this is a very important challenge for the machine learning community. You know, outliers are very, in general, we eliminate them. But this is not a good strategy for different domains. For example, in fraud detection, it is very, very important to deal with outlier, because outlier, they allow to you to discover some knowledge, and this knowledge is very important for the users. Okay, so you have missing values. Also, this is very important. Some variables for reasons like you have, for example, private data. So they didn't offer you this kind of data. You can have, for example, malfunction for some devices when you collect data, for example, using IoT devices. So for many reasons, you can have missing values in your data sets. And you have, when your data are cleaned, you have the second task. So this is the task of data cleaning. And you have another task, which is data reduction. Data reduction means that you have to reduce the dimensionality of your features. Sometimes you have a data set 100 features, 200 features. And this is not good to build a model and construct a set of knowledge on this data. For the one reason, because if you provide a solution with, for example, 100 inputs, it will not be easy to use, and it will not be easy to understand. So there is a feature reduction. Feature reduction means that you have some features, and you put them together according to some hypothesis, depending on the technique that you are using. And from this initial variable, you provide a set of new features. And you have feature extraction. Feature extraction means that you keep the initial feature, and you select only some of them that are relevant and important for the task that you want to carry out after in the modeling. I mean classification, regression, association, or clustering. So then you have transformation. Transformation is mainly with the scale. You know, some variables, they have a different scale. For example, if you have the age in general is from, you can say, 0 to 150, but salary is from 0 to, I don't know how, to 1 million. So this is a different scale. And this is very important because that this difference impact the knowledge discovery after in the modeling. Like, for example, for the KNN is one of the models that is very, very sensitive to this kind of challenge in data preparation. You have also data balancing, which is a specific challenge in classification in which you have minority class and majority class. So there are different techniques to deal with. You have like balancing, balancing truth oversampling or undersampling, or you can use what we call cast-sensitive learning, which is also an important a set of important techniques that can deal with this kind of limitation. So at the end, if you have all the challenges that you face in these projects, you can start to use some machine learning techniques. So you have the information, like you have an equation for the prediction, you have a set of cluster for clustering, you have a set of association rule for the association task, and so on. And then by interpretability, you can transform this information to the knowledge. And this is very, very important one, because sometimes you have the information, but you didn't have the knowledge. So knowledge means that you have the information, you have the interpretability of the information, and you know how to use it in order to take benefit from this information in the real life, in the domain in which you are dealing with KDD for KDD from knowledge from data. Okay, so this is some statistics that like an overview, because before starting to work in this domain applying, because I am from computer science community, I am not from medical science. I started more than 15 years now on applying machine learning and ICT, in particular software engineering in this area. And our first objective is to know what is the statistic, what is the roadmap, in which subdomain of medicine, for example, data processing was applied frequently. What are the techniques that are frequently used? And what are the business questions that are very important? Are questions like classification question or regression answer? So this is a statistic that we have from different publication in different digital libraries, in IEEE, ICM, Science Direct, and other. So we carry out what systematic mapping study. And you have here, for example, that cardiology is the first discipline in terms of to be the target of using data preprocessing in medicine with 35%. You have the second one is endocrinology with 90%, and you have the last one is oncology with 16%. So this is the three subfields of medicine in which are frequently the subjects of applying preprocessing tasks. So now what are the preprocessing tasks that are most frequently used in this discipline and on other disciplines of medicine? So as you can see in this figure is data reduction. Data reduction, mainly feature selection. Why feature selection? This is a particular case in medicine. You know, as I explained before, future extraction is to combine the initial future and provide new one with the objective of reducing dimensionality. And future selection is the same. The objective is reducing the dimensionality, but only by selecting some of them, not creating new variable. So in general, in medicine, we prefer future selection. Why we prefer future selection? Because for the interpretation, for doctor, it's very important to keep the initial variables, even you can select some of them, and for the interpretation purposes, you can do that easily. But if you combine future, for example, you combine the age with the heart pressure and with the blood pressure and the heart rate, it will be difficult for a doctor to understand what is this variable. It doesn't mean for him anything. So this is why, in general, in medicine, we prefer to do future selection than future reduction. But than future extraction. Future extraction is very important when you have images. This case is no way to do future selection first. You should first extract the future from the images, because the future are not available. You should extract them, and then after you can do a kind of selection by using future selection. So this is why, this is the explanation that we can provide why future reduction is the most frequently pre-processing task. Okay, so I will share with you in 5 minutes. So this is one of the project that was closed 1 year ago. It was about data mining-based approach for cardiovascular dysautonomia diagnosis and treatment. This project was managed by SDGs and was financed by the Ministry of Higher Education. It was about INS. INS is what we call autonomous nervous system, is a part of the nervous system that control involuntary action, such as the beating of the heart, the breathing, the swallowing, the widening, or the narrowing of the blood vessel. So cardiovascular dysautonomias mean that you have a problem in your heart, but the problem is not in your heart, is in the in this unit, is in the autonomic nervous system. There's a particular case. It can be also in your lungs. It can be also in your liver, and any malfunction that is due to the malfunctions in your autonomic nervous system, they call it autonomous. So we collected data with the Department of Cardiology in Avisan Hospital in Rabat, and in particular with the INS unit. Data was about 300 patients, 8 categorical features. In terms of modeling, it was not a challenge for us, because in general, it was easy to have a classifier. Only by using single one, like DTs, it was the most performant, and it was also interesting because DTs, as you know, is one of the classifiers that is white box, can be easily explained for the user. So this is the first. The second project is under the Akhawayn program, presented this morning. So it's still in progress. It is about machine learning based for 3 medical tasks: for screening, for diagnosis, and for treatment. So screening is an early detection method that is defined as testing women before any evidence symptom appear. It is very important for breast cancer, because it's one of the cancer that if you detect it early, the chance of survival for the woman is high. So this is why screening is very important. And in general, we use clinical breast examination, or we use mammogram. Mammogram because it's low cost, not like MRI. We will not use MRI for screening. We use, for example, MRI for diagnosis, not for screening. And you have also for screening. So we have data until now. There is a lot of public data that you can use, but we start to collect data from the Ibn Rushd Hospital with histopathological images, a type of images that is more dedicated for detecting breast cancer. And we will use for sure machine learning, simple machine learning techniques like decision tree and other, because we have tabulated data, but we will use also deep learning. And for 1 year now ago in this project, We have done more than 10 publications in this area by using different combinations like single ensemble learning, which is a new paradigm in machine learning that try to combine different learners than to use only one learner. And in general, you can perform better than using one learner. The third project, which is one of the projects, I like it because it was a lot of successful in this project. It was about, there is no artificial intelligence in that one. This is medicine because this is reproductive health services. So this is more digitalization. So this project was funded by under the initiative of PEER. The project is 72486, managed by National of Academies and Academies of Science and financed by USAID. So in this project, we are looking for the three services in any maternity: the service of contraception, the service of prenatal, and the service of postnatal. This is the three major service in general. Any kind of maternity that you can visit, you can find these services offered by this maternity. There are some differences because in some cases, we got, for example, pregnant women, diabetes pregnant women are not in general in all the maternity. There are specific units that deal with this kind of pregnant women. So what it was, the challenge for us is to develop a kind of global solution in terms of three applications, mobile application, and one EHR, what we call electronic health record. So we developed an application for the contraception. The application, the name is My Contraception. We developed an app application which is Mama and Baby, which is for the woman after delivery and for the baby also. And an application, Magrocess, which is the application for prenatal monitor, pregnancy monitoring. And those applications are published in the Google Play now. They are offered until now under the Android platform. You can download them, just search in the Google Play by this name, My Contraception, My and Baby, and Magrocess, or you can send, or you can check my linked page. You will find all the link that you can access and download them. And these applications are in English, are in French, are in Arabic also. So they are provided in 3 languages. So, okay, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Idri. Next is my honor to introduce the Director of the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa in Rabat, Madame Shrudowski, and she is going to talk to us about sustainable agriculture. She is an economist with experience in international organizations and financial institutions, a development economist with experience in emerging markets in Africa, Central Asia, and Europe. She has been an associate professor at Prague University and an adjunct professor in economics at the University of Cape Town. She has World Bank experience where she led a knowledge management team, and she has her PhD from the University of Minnesota in the United States. Director.
I wonder if my presentation is on. Sorry, I don't see my presentation.
Can you help? Is AID from Morocco too?
2.0, maybe.
I don't think
No, that's Kirby.
Just search the name, maybe.
Pardon me?
Your name. Can we just search my name?
Shmidrowski.
Maybe it's in the presentation.
Okay.
Just type it here, please.
Which name? My name?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay,
If it's
yes.
in the presentation, sure. think there's.
Okay, I
Ah,
can.
here it is.
Okay.
It's there.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Yeah. Okay. So thank you very much for this introduction, and we're very pleased to be here from North Africa, United Nations Economic Commission for Africa. So, as was said by the moderator, the focus is on SDG 2, eliminating hunger, basically. And as we heard in other presentations yesterday and earlier today, it's an aspiration, and at this point for quite a few SDGs, it doesn't seem that they will be reached. And this one particularly received major setback, both during the COVID, but also now with the Russia-Ukraine conflict. And North Africa is among the most impacted regions. So this is also why we are focusing, our office in its work, focusing on this topic. So let us unpack a little bit SDG number 2. So the goal is to end hunger, achieve food security, and improve nutrition, and promote sustainable agriculture. And of course, food security is now a broader concept, so we more often now speak about sustainable food systems. But if we were to unpack food security a little bit, it would be about physical food availability, which means the food needs to be physically available for people to reach, but also economic availability. That means they have to have means to purchase it in case they are purchasing it. It's about access, which is often linked to infrastructure, but not only roads, etc., but also storage facilities. And it's about utilization. So with that comes also in part, it's also linked to education. So people need to make the right choices to receive the right nutritional value from the available food. And finally, sustainability. So we can talk about food security only if these features are sustainably presented. So sustainable agriculture plays an important part. And again, with the Russia-Ukraine conflict, many countries are rethinking, and they are talking about increasing food sovereignty. And of course, we don't mean complete autarky by that any means, but it's about reshoring and friendshoring. So basically trading with reliable partners. And for Africa, the African Continental Free Trade Agreement presents a really great opportunity to enhance intra-regional trade, which is among the lowest in the world. Now, so that's the development part. Now the AI part, just kind of a few key digital constructs. So we have digitization, which is a mechanical part. We have digitalization, which is a major mega trend recognized, which means this is happening, and for us it's better to acknowledge it and try to benefit and mitigate also the negative consequences. And finally, for what most countries aim for, a number of them have strategy in that area, is digital transformation. And when we look at the artificial intelligence, it's one of the technologies that is helping countries to achieve the digital transformation. So we were talking about unpacking AI, and maybe that's part of the demystifying it. It's just a tool that, if used well, can help with the digital transformation. Now here's just example on for advanced economies. What could the AI, good utilization AI, do for them? And we show how much faster these countries could grow if AI is used effectively. Now this is measured in terms of gross value added, which basically approximates GDP and in real terms. Now for our region, for North Africa, where we want to concentrate, maybe Egypt. Egypt is here somewhere, and that's, yeah, Egypt is here, the second one from the right. So it's slightly below 10%. Actually, we look more precisely. So current forecast is that AI will contribute 7.5% of GDP in 2030. But if it's used more effectively, it could contribute much more. And here we see the prediction for China, 25%, for example. Now, all this is approximate. At the end, we don't know how things will evolve, but these are the current estimates. So Egypt, when we look at North Africa, so our office covers 7 countries. That's how we define North Africa. So Algeria, Libya, Tunisia, Morocco, Sudan, Mauritania, and yeah, I think hopefully that's 7, and Egypt. And Among those, only Egypt actually now has well-developed national AI strategy. Morocco has the new development model, and its digitalization is a big component of it, but strategy as such is not there, but the country is moving towards it, and the same applies to Tunisia. Now, in its national strategy, also important component for Egypt is that agriculture and sustainable agriculture production and climate change mitigation, also related to this, is an important component, one of the objectives of the strategy. Now we are well prepared for this from this morning. This is a repetition. We saw this graph. So when we look at AI readiness, which is countries' ability to deploy AI, but we measure it as a government readiness. And I don't need to repeat the three components, but you see them very clearly. What is a little bit concerning that basically Egypt, which is the highest ranked from North Africa, is number 65 out of 165 countries. And Saudi Arabia and UAE are way above, so that's something for North Africa also to aspire to. And Morocco is somewhere in the middle. So definitely positive side of these numbers, first of all, is just one index, and there could be other perspective, but also there is a clearly room for improvement. And we know that about North Africa, that digitalization, we see it in the uptake of digital finance or innovation is area where definitely there is a room for improvement. But there is also room for, what is it called, leapfrogging, so jumping and perhaps being innovating. So when we look at the Egypt national AI strategy, it has two major objectives. So first of all, exploit the technologies to serve development. So for one of the kind of notes on the strategy that for Egypt, it's much more about development and less about AI. So AI for development is really how the AI will serve development rather than being overly concerned about the technological aspects. So technology is the means. And then foster regional and international cooperation on AI to ensure fairness and equality. So this is a big concern for Africa, and Egypt is one of the major economies in Africa. So Egypt is taking leadership here in AI, also being among the first ones. And we hear about, just climate transition, etc. We heard about the digital divide. So for Egypt, it's very important that also in this area, there is a fairness and that the developing and emerging market economies have the same access and same opportunities as the rest of the world. And a lot of it has to do with regulations. So for Egypt, we want the technology and for the rest of Africa to work for us, not us for it. But they also acknowledge this is a trend. We better very well familiarize rather than ignore it, and we're better with it rather than being the laggards. Like with most innovations, it doesn't pay off to be among the last ones. Usually that comes with major costs. Now the strategy is divided into pillars and enablers. So pillars, again, AI for government and AI for development. It's very difficult to kind of separate them very neatly. Obviously, they connect, and the capacity building. And that's also very important for our office. So if you ask what our office is doing, we are a think tank, and we also aim to be more of a do tank. So think tanks means, taking the knowledge from inception, ideas generating, brokerage, but implementation. And the capacity building is important part of implementation. So that's that. So again, three principles for Egypt in terms of capacity building. So it should enhance human labor, not to replace it. So that's a very important principle. And then focus is on expanding labor market. So we know, even though the goal is not to replace it, some jobs will be lost. So, but then as we all learn in Economics 101, there is no limited number of jobs in the economy. We all can create our own job, be entrepreneurial. So this is the kind of aspiration of Egypt. And we know in North Africa, the low employment rates are a key challenge of the region, right? We know for the youth unemployment, but also for women, North Africa and other actually Middle Eastern economies have the lowest female labor for participation globally, very low. So again, the job creation is critical. And then, reskilling and training and education, key. But then there is the reality, as with most transition, there will be a segment of population that will not be either easy or not perhaps even possible at all to upskill or reskill in this direction. So what we need there is social policies, right? So this was, for example, with transition in Central and Eastern Europe. There was simply part of the population who could not easily switch to market-oriented economy. So then the social policies are really extremely important. And again, the international cooperation to reduce the digital divide and create same opportunities. So this is more on capacity building. Here, important point here is, and this is from the strategy itself of Egypt, that for deploying the AI, we need both. We need the technical skills, and that's the pillar on the left from your perspective, my perspective, and we need other skills and soft skills. And soft skills are actually critical for judgment and being ethical and how the AI is applied, because the AI should be human-centric at the end, again, not replace humans, but support and enhance. So both sets of skills are key. Here is about the fostering international cooperation. So it's about, how to know the trends and how we deal with it collectively. And again, the African Continental Free Trade Agreement provides great opportunity, because it's not only about trading goods, it's about migration. And we know there is a lot of barriers within Africa to migration and utilizing the opportunities. South Africa is slightly different, the SACU countries, but in other regions, there is a lot of barriers to be able to freely move and work in other countries. So again, this is an opportunity. Now, Egypt is very active. It's part of the African Union and Arab League on this topic. And this is actually important aspect for us, for international organizations. And we hear it from the ground. So the countries no longer are happy to hear from us what we recommend them to do. It's not about bringing a brochure, here is a set of policies, and please go and do it. They say, help us implement it, because we have very concrete bottlenecks that we need to overcome, and we want you to be with us there. So now finally to the agriculture. So agriculture is important in Egypt. The estimates here, we have 32% of labor force, but indirectly it's over half. So critical sector, only 15% of GDP. So immediately it's telling us the productivity is very low. And we know that in general of Africa, that yields are low, there is a room for improvement, etc. So what can AI do? So forecasted weather data, and actually probably, I don't know if it's still here, but I come not originally, but I arrived from Austria, and I still have my mobile and whatever. So, 3, 4, 5 years ago, I would get maybe message every 2 years about extreme weather condition that's threatening the region, and I should be careful. Now I get it maybe 3, 4, 5 times in a season. And it's really happening, so this is where AI plays a role, so warning us ahead. Monitoring crop and soil health. So again, identify the best areas where to grow certain crops, but also identify the timing, when should we growing these crops. So here in Morocco, where we have a shortage of water, doesn't make sense to focus on really water demanding vegetables. We all know that. So there are other crops that are more beneficial than optimal pesticide usage, but also from the point of view of environmental implication. And then, of course, automation. So here's a specific example. So I don't know if anyone here is from Egypt, familiar with Hudhud. So it's an AI-enabled system. So if the farmer notices that, there are some health issues with the crops, they can take a photo, send it to Hudhud, and Hudhud will recommend what type of procedure should be applied. So that's just one. And it was only in December 2020, so it's fairly new, and let us see the results. So, but again, more broadly, we have the impact of climate change, analyzing data, detection of issues, and also, and we heard yesterday actually from the governor about better water consumption estimation and allocation, water loss control, and optimization of water use. So we heard that this is actually happening already in Morocco. That's also objective in Egypt. So again, going maybe to the weather conditions, temperature, wind, solar, etc. So here is just what the other countries are doing. So Tunisia is at the stage of MOU, Memorandum of Understanding. We know that actually Tunisia, among our North African countries, is by far the most advanced in the digital innovation. But in this particular aspect, Egypt seems to be ahead. And also note that agriculture actually does not feature on the Tunisia MOU, as at least at the stage 1. I mean, all this will go through stages, so it can come later, but right now this is not part. And similarly for Morocco, so it's a component of new development model, but we still don't have, I'm actually done ahead as it looks. We actually do not have specific AI strategy. I hope somebody will correct me here or tell me that it's actually just about to be issued. But to our knowledge, there is no AI strategy, and I think we are well informed. And so focus is on improvement of digital infrastructure, building capacities, and financial inclusion, by the way. Our office last year, about a year ago, well, in November 2021, we had a major seminar on digital finance and takeoff in North Africa. We had a repeat of it in April. It's a topic of great interest, so it's catching up in the region too. We know actually the central bank has now cryptocurrency kind of unit studying that, digital currency, etc. And support for digital startups. So again, to summarize, and you know, Algeria, we're not aware sorry, of any AI strategy, and certainly not in Sudan, Mauritania, also not. So that's where we are for now, but it's all coming, we're sure. So, and I think my colleagues here would correct me. They would say maybe there is not specific AI strategy, but there is a digital transformation strategy. So I think there is also, I would say, a spaghetti bowl of strategies. So we are not lacking strategies in our regions, we're lacking the implementation. So thank you. Okay.
Well, that was very, very interesting. All right, it is my honor to introduce our third presenter, Ms. Katia Knova. Are you? Huh?
That's right. Hello.
Hello, are you there?
I'm here.
What do I
Can you
need
hear
to
me?
press? Oh. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's better. I think we just need to do that.
So I do have the good fortune of seeing you on the screen here. Ms. Klanova is going to talk to us about SDG 8, which is Sustainable Development today. She is Head of Artificial Intelligence for the Labor and the Economy Partnership in Artificial Intelligence out of San Francisco. Is that correct? That's correct. And she focuses on steering artificial intelligence progress toward greater economic inclusion. She has a master's in public administration from Harvard University in the United States and a master's of science in computer science from Rostov University in Russia. And I'd like to welcome you, and if you can keep a clock on you, we have 15 minutes, and we look forward to what you have to say. Thank you much. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Arthur, for the kind introduction. Can you all hear me well? Yes. Perfect. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much to the organizers and everyone who is joining us today. It is my honor to speak to you about how technology and AI can be leveraged to advance the progress towards Sustainable Development Goal number 8, which is decent work and economic growth in the context of Morocco. And during my talk, I'll touch on both opportunities as well as watch-out points around using AI for development, because as any powerful technology, AI should be built and deployed with caution. And before I dive in, I just want to offer a note of humility. Even though I was lucky to visit the beautiful country of Morocco and travel extensively as a tourist, as a scholar, I cannot claim to have deep experience in specifically the local economy. So what I'm going to do is offer insights from my field, the emergent field of studies of AI, economic and labor impacts, those insights that seem to me to be relevant to the context of Morocco. But of course, it is up to you all to judge which of them are actually relevant. And please be assured that anything that does not resonate with you comes not from arrogance, but from ignorance. And so with that, on to AI and SDG number 8. In Morocco's new development model report, which is fantastic, and Arthur absolutely second your comments there. The goal that is aligned with SDG number 8 is listed as priority number 1, deservingly, and it is to build a productive and diversified economy that creates added value and quality jobs. This emphasis on creating quality jobs is fully justified because the working age population in Morocco is growing rapidly and is projected to increase by 50% by 2050 compared to the level of 2015. The new development model report also identifies the need to improve educational outcomes for Moroccan youth as a prerequisite to being able to improve economic outcomes and productive employment rates. It sets an ambitious target to nearly triple the share of students skilled in basic reading, math, and sciences by the age of 15 by 2035. And AI has the potential to meaningfully assist with making progress towards this important and ambitious goal. And that's, I think that because research pioneered by Pratham and Jaypal into the ways to improve educational outcomes has shown that one of the important barriers to students' learning is that it is customary right now for our schools all around the world to group children into classes by age independently of their respective mastery of material. No two children of the same age are alike. Everyone learns differently and at a different pace. And one of the key reasons why a child might reach an age of 15 without having mastered basic reading and math, assuming that they're able to attend school at all, is that there was probably a point where they needed more time or more help, more examples to master some basic material. They did not get that time or help, and all the material that was taught to them afterwards went essentially above their head. And in response to that challenge, Pratham pioneered an approach called teaching at the right level, which has proven itself as an effective strategy to improve learning outcomes. In the spirit of this approach, AI unlocks an opportunity to scale the personalization of education to each child's individual learning needs and their individual points of difficulty and pace, effectively complementing the teacher's effort and extending the teacher's ability to give personalized attention to every student. And of course, one should not view AI here as a magic wand, because the challenge of improving educational outcomes is much more complex than something that can be addressed with only a technical solution, a technical fix. But this is the first area I would identify as one where it is really worth looking into deploying AI to help make progress against Morocco's ambitious development goals. The next area where AI and digitalization in general could clearly help advance development objectives is tourism. And under priority number 1, the new development model sets out to adapt the tourism sector to global trends and a new reality following the pandemic. The model suggests to digitalize the offering of tourist accommodations, entertainment, and experiences, and there are at least a couple more relatively accessible opportunities I can see here with which technology and AI can help. The first one is putting a much higher share of local businesses that sell Moroccan arts and crafts online and building out their export potential, leveraging the tremendous growth that has been taking place in peer-to-peer e-commerce trade flows. Many artisans in Morocco's famous souks already offer customers who visit them in person to ship their purchases to their home countries, but relatively few of those have an online store or are present on one of the international platforms connecting artisans with customers around the world, which is an opportunity that could be further explored. Another trend that's blossomed during the pandemic, which Morocco could more actively leverage to expand the tourism economy, is what became known as work remotely from anywhere. In Morocco, investing in improving reliability and ubiquity of internet connection, as well as introducing tax and visa regimes that are friendly to digital nomads, could unlock an opportunity for the tourism sector to attract not only short-term visits from people on vacation, but also longer-term visitors coming to the country for quote-unquote workation, what became known as workation. Morocco's climate, rich heritage, and geographic position make it a perfect destination for digital nomads escaping colder months in Europe or America. Longer visits are also more conducive to facilitating the mutual exchange of know-how and attracting investments. And lastly, as Morocco works to achieve a positive competitiveness shock as outlined in the new development model, the focus set by the model is exactly right, on leveraging the proximity to low-carbon energy sources. This is a key comparative advantage that will be quickly gaining in importance as the world moves towards reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Plenty of opportunities will open up to deploy various AI applications in support of taking the most out of this comparative advantage. For example, deploying AI to increase energy use efficiency, better forecast peak loads, manage water consumption, as was already said by my fellow panelists, and many options like that. And I could keep going with this list of possible uses of AI applications and digitalization in service of Morocco development goals, but I want to make sure that I leave room to acknowledge the possibility of AI advancement undermining the development trajectory of the country if the risks brought on by AI are allowed to materialize. And the most important of this risk when it comes to SDG number 8 is that left to its own devices, AI advancement might lower and possibly dramatically lower the demand for human labor in the global economy, which would affect Morocco among other countries unless proactive steps are taken to prevent that. Lower labor demand does not necessarily mean a sudden onset of technological unemployment. I do not believe this is very likely to happen soon, at least not on the time horizon that is discussed in the new development model report. But lower labor demand might mean a further spread of underemployment, worsening of job quality, proliferation of precarious gig or platform employment, a downward pressure on wages, and further informalization of the economy. And so actively managing this challenge and not hoping that it'll take care of itself is especially relevant for Morocco as a country with a growing working age population and at present low educational outcomes. We already talked about the goals set out in the new development model to address the educational outcomes question, but training and skills development programs, which all intervene on the side of labor supply, they do need to be accompanied by interventions preventing sharp falls in labor demand. And that's because if labor demand is in a downward spiral due to global technological trends, even the most successful educational programs won't bring people quality jobs that they need. To understand what kind of demand-side interventions could be relevant here, we need to revisit quickly the decades-long debate in economics about appropriate and inappropriate technologies. The technology is deemed appropriate if it is well-suited to the factor endowments of a particular country, if it takes advantage of the skills and resources the country has and does not require very heavy investment in resources that are scarce in that country. And so technologies produced in high-income countries where working age population is rapidly shrinking and which therefore are experiencing labor shortages, they're often labor saving and capital intensive. And therefore they're inappropriate for countries where capital and jobs and not labor are scarce. And these countries, such countries, would benefit much more from labor intensive technologies. And so as Darren Asimoglu points out, AI might well prove to be the mother of all inappropriate technology due to the present strictly labor-saving focus of many of the AI applications. And to be fair, there is nothing inherent about AI itself that would make all of its application necessarily labor-saving. Quite the contrary, AI can be used to complement human labor. But the reality today is that much of AI research and development that is happening in countries facing labor shortages, and it is no surprise that they end up producing applications that economize on labor. It's a resource that is scarce in those countries. The challenging part begins when those labor-saving technologies are indiscriminately deployed all over the world, including in countries with scarcity of jobs and not labor. And if you think that deployment of sophisticated technologies like AI across borders isn't something that is already happening at scale and impacting local jobs in countries like Morocco, you would be surprised to learn that that's exactly what's going on. And the nature of many AI-enabled applications is such that once the fixed cost of developing that technology is paid somewhere in California, for example, the marginal cost of deploying it all over the world or everywhere where the company that developed it operates is basically zero or negligible relative to that fixed cost. That is why if you walk into a McDonald's in Africa, you'll see a self-order kiosk powered by an AI technology developed in California. McDonald's invested in acquiring that technology because it wanted to reduce the number of workers they needed to hire in the United States. But once the technology is there, the company just deployed it in 130 countries around the world, independently of what the local wages are or what the situation with unemployment rates. And so because of these dynamics, the capacity of AI developed abroad impact the labor demand not only in exporting industries, but also in the production of non-tradable goods and services in the domestic economy. It is important to be paying attention to the technologies being brought into Morocco, as well as those developed domestically. Not all of them are created equally beneficial to the economy. Some technologies bring minuscule, if any, productivity gains while displacing jobs, while others achieve much more meaningful productivity gains while also complementing workers, making them more valuable to the labor market. And of course, it is not that all automation, all labor displacing technology needs to be eliminated. It's not possible and it would not be desirable. But it is important for us to differentiate when we are speaking of development objectives, to differentiate between healthy AI and automation and not so healthy or desirable automation. Healthy automation technology meaningfully boosts productivity. It lowers the costs of producing goods and services. And if those lower costs get passed on to consumers in the form of lower prices or better quality goods, then they create a real income effects, and they might be creating labor demand elsewhere in the economy that compensates for any labor demand that might have been lost due to automation. That's healthy automation. But the not so healthy automation either doesn't raise productivity all that much compared to productivity of a human worker while still causing labor demand to shrink, and self-order kiosk is a prime example of that. Or it takes place in a market environment where labor cost savings do not propagate to consumers in the form of lower prices, and so they do not create those boosts to real income effect. And so since the Moroccan development challenge requires the country to boost productivity while also growing the number of jobs in the economy, it is paramount for Morocco to emphasize the development and adoption of labor complementing technologies and steer as clear as possible of the not so healthy automation that I was just describing. There is a number of ways to do it, not least by using public procurement as a strategic lever for stimulating the local development and technological transfer of desirable kinds of technologies. Okay, to sum up, AI is a tool with the potential to meaningfully help improve educational outcomes, digitalize the tourism economy, establish Morocco's comparative advantage in access to low-carbon energy sources, and so much more. But while taking advantage of these opportunities, it is also important to watch out for excessive deployments of labor-saving AI, because such applications likely are going to reduce formal sector jobs at the time when they're critically needed. And instead, the emphasis needs to be placed on encouraging the local development and technological transfer of labor complementing AI applications, which help raise productivity while also boosting labor demand and job creation. Okay, I'll wrap it here. Arthur, thank you very much. Handing back over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that stimulating presentation. I enjoyed it a great deal. Our next presenter is Ifrane Korekian, and she comes to us from the UN Department of Economic and Social Affairs in New York. And she is the Governance and Public Administration Officer, Digital Government Branch, Division for Public Institutions and Digital Government. She has and is working in blockchain, open government data, digital electronic government, public participation, and public sector innovation. Probably much more than that, I suspect. She has her MPA from Harvard, and she has an MS from the London School of Economics, plus an MA in International Relations from Yerevan State University.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thanks,
Welcome for your presentation.
Thank you very much. And well, I'm trying to get my presentation up. Yes, sure. Yes. I wanted just to mention that it's probably a blessing and a curse to come at the panel at the later stages of the conference when there is a bit of a fatigue. But at the same time, I'm listening through the panelists today with my fellow panelists and notice that they're already pointing out to many directions that we have in common to address. Just Katja, like 2 minutes ago, she addressed something which is of a dual nature, of digital technologies that we need to be aware of. And how are we? No, not that one, no. It should be on the desktop. Sorry, I need to close this. And this would be the one. Mm-hmm. No?
It's this one.
No? It should be.
Because everything is.
I think this is the one. Can you open it? Yeah. Can you go to slideshow? Yeah. So let me start with quickly just going back to what UN in general is thinking about AI. And speaking with the words of the Secretary General, AI is a new frontier, and with advances moving at a warp speed already, so we all know that. And he also emphasized that we need to embrace the promise of the digital technology while protecting people from its perils. And Katja was really keen on pointing out to some of those perils. So, and it's not coincidental that our UN DESA Assistant Secretary General has mentioned that the international community cannot quite reap the full benefits of digital age without mobilizing global collaboration to mitigate the potential harms of innovation. And in doing so, it is crucial to leverage digital technology to leave no one behind. And why this principle is important is it's taking us back to our common vision for the future, 2030 Development Agenda for Sustainable Development, and its central transformative promise of the agenda. So all member states back in the day, in 2015, pledged to not only eradicate poverty and end discrimination and exclusion, but also to reduce the inequalities and vulnerabilities and leave no one behind. So that's why I think it's very important for us to once in a while check with the background of why we're doing things as we're doing and how we can make sure that we address the vulnerabilities. So the work with the technology transfer has started even before the 2030 agenda was brought forward. In 2012 already there was a mechanism for technology transfer, and with the time passing by, United Nations have created an interagency task team on science, technology, innovation. There is a forum that is convened annually before the high-level political forum. There is a 10-member group that the United Nations Secretary General has appointed from the scientific community, renowned people that advise the Secretary General and the UN on breakthroughs and important innovation. And there is a platform, 2030 Connect, that tries to serve as a gateway for information on existing STIs, science, technology, innovations, mechanisms, and programs. So the work is already there. It might not be as visible for those who are not who are not very familiar with the UN, but there's a lot of resources. And one of them I wanted to highlight as a central and important document for us is Secretary General's Roadmap to Digital Cooperation, which came in June 2020. And it is important here to highlight that of 8 big areas that he highlighted in the roadmap that we require international collaboration is, one of them is supporting digital collaboration on artificial intelligence. The document is available online. I'll share the links later. It's just to highlight that also there is a publication on UN activities on AI, produced last year and to be updated this year, where over 40 entities participating, including UNDESA, that I'm part of, and over 220 projects have been reviewed on their work on AI supporting the SDGs. As you can see, for all SDGs, there is at least something going on, some with more, some with less degree. And on the status of completion, some of them are completed or discontinued for various reasons, but the current projects produced by a majority of the UN entities who were in the survey cover decent work, as Katja has mentioned as well, no poverty, as Susanna has mentioned, zero hunger, SDG 2, and SDG 9, industry, innovation, and infrastructure. These are all areas where AI applicability is very prominent. From UNDESA side, I wanted just to highlight that our flagship publication that comes every 2 years in 2018 has already presented a chapter on transformative technologies, including AI. And what to expect, what's coming in, what trends are, and then how public institutions should adjust and adapt to accepting them. And an upcoming publication, which will be launched actually in less than 10 days in New York, the 2022 survey on e-government, has not only provided information on the technologies and how governments are doing it, but also we went one step further and applied AI actually model to do the analysis ourselves as well, to complement our traditional methodology of using it with a pilot study that has employed computational power and AI to compare the countries, over 193 countries, with over 500 different developmental indicators to find the similarities, differences in their performance on e-government development. And the survey will be very shortly publicly available. I hope that you will spend some time learning it. Another area that throughout our survey we also collect information from the member states. The 2022 sort of survey highlights that we have already about 93 countries that have national e-government strategies covering technologies, including AI. And out of those countries, and many of them probably separately, 71 of them has not only strategy to do that, but also legislation input, some legislation, regulation, policy specifically on frontier technologies and AI. The map below is sort of highlighting the areas where the countries that have responded positively to having the strategy and legislation. The red is countries that reported not having, and the gray is the countries where it didn't report anything. We don't have enough data to assert it. But I wanted to also show you the comparable map of data from 2020, our survey, on e-government development index. And we usually have it like e-government development above the average and below the average. So blue is above the average, orange is below the average of e-government development. And you can see similarities in the patterns of where technology is deployed better and where there's legislation and institutional framework compared vis-a-vis where the countries are performing well in e-government development. And why is that? Partially because, for example, in Africa, this is due to lack of necessary infrastructure, and partially because the cost of internet and mobile broadband in Africa region and later and next in Oceania still remains significantly higher compared to the rest of the world, proportional to the GDP. So these are things that systemic. It doesn't, the country, no matter how much effort they do it, without connecting the people to digital world and digitization, it will be difficult to advance. And it's no coincidence that even now, this quote comes from May 2020 ECOSOC discussions, Economic and Social Council discussions at the UN, where nearly all member states stressed the need to create a just digital digital paradigm for the future governance, financing and infrastructure of digital public goods, but also to reduce digital divides. We have already heard throughout the panel's presentations that this is still remaining and probably even widening phenomena, and it is important to keep that in mind. So just quickly summing up what AI can do for achieving the SDGs. As Katja mentioned and Susanne mentioned as well, it's not something of a choice. It's ubiquitous already everywhere in its applications. And it's ranging from navigation of the content and recommendations to being at the forefront of genome sequencing, at work improvements and so forth. So we all know that AI has created significant possibilities for economic growth and efficiencies. And we have heard through these 2 days many examples of those. In manufacturing, for example, on the productivity and deployment of autonomous vehicles and networks. And we need to also be aware that the use of AI itself is forecasted to generate nearly 4 trillion added value only by 2022 alone. So these numbers will be growing, so it's there. But we need to be also aware of the double-edged nature of the AI. A recent study at the Nature, and this is not UN sort of executed or UN endorsed study, but it was very interesting that a group of scientists tried to, see how AI, different initiatives, projects, and papers and research are targeting the Sustainable Development Goals. And you can see on the I think from that side, left side, the positive impacts of AI on different SDGs. And they figured that about 134 targets, nearly 79% of those targets across all SDGs, AI has acted as an enabler to achieve those things. But there's also 35% of the impact of AI that is documented to have inhibitor effect on SDG improvements. Why is that? For example, if you look at this chart, which shows like in green the enablers and orange inhibitors, we can say that AI, for example, is helping to identify the areas of poverty and foster action very quickly using satellite images, or, as Susanne mentioned, can support provision of food, health, water, and help with energy projects on a positive side, but at the same time, it creates additional qualification requirements for all jobs, not only AI-related, and increases the inherent inequalities and pushes people back further to poverty. And Katja highlighted very nicely through her presentations and such perils. AI helps to create low-carbon systems and models for circular economy, smart cities, autonomous vehicles, smart applications, and smart grids. All of that is very, very positive. But at the same time, currently, AI requires massive computational resources, which are usually available only with large firms concentrated in a digital north, so to speak, and it's increasing. And on top of that, the very high energy requirements and carbon footprint of computational centers is creating a demand for electricity and energy nearly 20 times fold of what is required today, from 1 to 20% of the GDP by some estimates. So these are sort of dual sword situation in here, and we need to be aware of that digital sort of divide and possible implications. When it comes to AI for achieving SDG 16, where my organization works for, and Nibal will be talking a bit later in her presentation, it has sort of two dimensions. One is that, of course, the AI is helping the public sector to perform better and increase the effectiveness as such. And we've seen throughout today a number of examples in the healthcare system, in delivery of online services, and increasing the efficiency of law enforcement in many cases, where AI has been deployed to do it. And we saw the best of it in probably during the COVID-19 responses. And we also enhanced government accountability overall and transparency. But there's another role that the public institutions and public sector need to play to adopt policies and regulations on a societal level that address the sort of code of ethics covering AI, the use of technology, the labor force that's what the implications for that. So there's a huge regulatory role, and as well as it helps to enable the use of other technologies, because most other technologies, for example, blockchain, Internet of Things, and quantum computing do not exist without AI as such. So there is a dual and enabling role there as well. So I will be very quick going forward to this ones because Nibal will be covering a lot more on this, but I wanted just to highlight that there are a few areas where public sector needs to mobilize resources and act upon. On institutional dimension, we need to start managing technologies far better than we do now, and it starts with understanding what exists now to change it. The next one is to facilitate the experimentation and regulatory processes as such. There are different avenues. We work, for example, on regulatory sandboxes in my organization. There are many examples of that. The second one is the policy dimension, where we need to try, and the public sector has a duty to minimize the social risks coming from the technology and manage ethical risks and prevent abuse. So that one of the ways to do that is to actually devise a set of metrics and indicators to keep a check, not only the private sector, but also public sector as well in the use of AI. The technology dimension is that we have heard several times throughout these 2 days that without data and without clean and standardized data, AI will stumble upon a lot more hurdles than it can do, and learning would be much harder. So understanding and amplifying the central role of the data is another area where public sector has to work on, and probably one of the best strategies to do it is to target the low-hanging fruits as good examples to show that the potential of the technology as such. And there's also a point there on the capacity development, and it has been also addressed throughout these 2 days, how important it is to do not only individual capacity, but also improve institutional capacity and create environment enabling for that. And the last, but not least, the global dimension of it to support the advance of global compact on digital cooperation everywhere. UN has many platforms for that, and I hope that everyone who is here will make use of it and engage in that process. So I'm leaving you with 3 basic resources that I think are important for you to know about the UN, and we'll be happy to give the floor back to my colleague and to Arthur. I rushed through it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, we certainly have covered a lot of ground this afternoon, and we're going to cover more ground with Nibal. Nibal Idelbi comes to us from ESQA, where she is the Chief of Innovation at the UN Economic and Social Commission for Western Asia. She's a senior policy expert in digital transformation, innovation, and technology for sustainable development and digital open government. She is a former deputy minister in the Ministry of Communication Technology in Syria. She was also professor of computer engineering in Syria's Higher Institute of Applied Sciences and Technology. And it was my great pleasure to introduce Nibal.
Thank you. Thank you, Arthur.
Okay, my duty is not easy, I understand, because I am the last and many things has been said already. Then I will try to do my best not to repeat, but I mean maybe to summarize what has been said so far in the terms of AI for, especially for SDGs, and specifically one of the SDG that I will focus on. Okay, let me find my presentation first. Okay. As I am from ESQA, and maybe not all of you are aware what is ESQA. ESQA, as Arthur said, is the Economic Social Commission for Western Asia. It is, in fact, one of the UN Regional Commission, and it is based in Beirut, but it covers, we are working with all Arab countries, except 2 for the time being. Then we are covering 20 Arab countries, and we are working with them at different level, especially for policy advice, but also we are convening power. Then we organize meetings and capacity building workshops, and we have interesting portals that are, it is really very interesting in terms of material that it include. But also we do have a technical cooperation program where we have some work in collaboration with each country apart. Our mission is more to work at regional level, but we have some activity at national level. This is my organization, and Arthur said who I am. Then let us speak about technology and AI, and I will focus mainly on public sector. Before starting, I mean, we have spoken a lot about AI, and there are a lot of, many experts said a lot about AI. But I choose this one because, I mean, it captures 3 elements which I want to focus on, and I would like to draw your attention to them. This is the chair of the UK Government AI Council who said that, who spoke about AI, and he spoke about the tremendous opportunity that AI offers, and that we have, I mean, based on what we have done so far, maybe we need to revisit what we have done to take into account the power of AI and the power of new technologies, including others, maybe like big data and so on. Also, he mentioned that AI should be should be developed together. I mean, there should be collaboration between the different stakeholders to develop it together, private sector, academia, government, and so on. Then it is really activity, I mean, technology that need collaboration between many stakeholders. And the third, which is also very important for us, that AI should be applied to the UN Sustainable Development Goal. These 3 are really summarizing a lot they say a lot about AI and what it is for. Speaking about SDG, I mean, we all know that one of the SDG is focusing on peace, justice, and building strong institutions. And this is very important for the Arab region because we know that our public institutions are relatively weak. And this SDG, in fact, focuses on 3 aspects that are very important for accountability and a transparent institution. Government should be responsive, inspired, and inclusive, that where we have inclusiveness for decision making, which include all stakeholders. And also this SDG focus on the need to have access to information, to public information for all. These 3 aspects are very important, and these 3 elements, in fact, have given in a way and have enforced the trends that appeared in 2011. In fact, the issue of open government, which appeared in the United States, which started, in fact, by a declaration from Obama. And open government, in fact, it is really related to the 3 objectives that are mentioned in the SDG 16. Therefore, when the SDGs appears, in fact, it was reinforcing the issue of open government and the need for open government. Open government, it is a kind of, in fact, a government which is transparent and accountable for about its activity and its value. This is the second aspect. The first is openness and transparency, but the second issue also that this government value the participation and the opinion of its citizen and all the stakeholders in the country. Therefore, these 2 aspects are really the mandatory and the important aspect of open government, which is needed and it is demanded by many citizens in the Arab region. And we have seen that during 2011 with the Arab Spring, if we can call it Arab Spring. Based on this, in fact, ESCWA started working on open government since 2015 almost, and we have started working on open government because we saw that it is needed for the Arab region, specifically based on the progress made in e-government in many countries in the region. We have proposed a framework for moving from e-government towards open government in the Arab region, and we have adopted a model that is customized for the need of Arab region, considering their level of development in e-government, in technology, but also in governance, where the governance is really weak in the Arab region as compared to technology development in the Arab region. Governance is relatively, I mean, we can see when we look at the indicators, I mean, the governance is really very bad in the Arab region. This model has been adopted in some country, and it was focusing on, it is four stages. It starts by openness, open government, specifically open data, and then participation, collaboration, engagement, which is maybe the most difficult one to be adopted in the Arab region. Therefore, we have looked at open government as stages for the Arab government rather than to go directly for engaging citizens in government decision making. We know that decision maker will not accept it easily. Recently, we collaborated with the OECD for looking at open government from another angle, which is the economic and social impact of open government for the Arab region, specifically for the Arab region. We took very good example from OECD country and from selected Arab country who made very good progress in some area, in some selected domain, and we have published recently this publication, and we have it in Arabic and English. This publication look at the all SDG, look how open government will serve different SDG, and we have in fact identified about 8 SDG where open government has advantage for these SDGs. Okay, let me say based on all these aspects, I mean, we are currently looking at AI and how AI will support, from one side, SDG 16, but also e-government and also the open government on a way or another. Because, in fact, both of them are supporting public sector and so on. Looking at the AI and all the features of AI that we looked at during the last days, I mean the last 2 days, yesterday and today, in fact, we can say that there are 3 characteristics that are very important for a public sector from AI. The first is the quick analysis of data, quick analysis of large data, the cognitive aspect and the self-learning aspect of AI, which helps a lot for the automation process. And the third aspect is the predictive analysis that is also very important for better planning and better decision making. These 3 aspects, in fact, they are the base of many other applications in the public sector that we can imagine. These, in fact, based on these 3 aspects and characteristics, we can say that it will enhance automation, citizen engagement, which is very important, and for decision making, and also for having a new set of services that we cannot imagine before having AI, because it was not possible to look at. And this is the power of technology today. When we speak about digital transformation, we would like to look at the power of technology, what it can offer, in order to look at our business and shape it in different way in order to tap on the potential of digital, of this emerging technology. And okay, and then we can have really a new set of services towards government too. Here there is a set of applications, I mean, of AI that are applied to public sector. Some of them, I mean, are mentioned already, but I mean, just let us take some of them, which is detecting fraud in public procurement, which is very important. Corruption is very important. Therefore, it is very important to look at such example. Improve government services delivery to citizens, which is also very much needed, with better automation to have enhanced processes, and also to look at the analysis and the prediction of law enforcement. This is also very important when we look and we analyze the data. There are a lot of examples that we can imagine based on what I have said. For example, I have identified some good examples from the international market. One example from Brazil about assessment system for fraud detection. There is an application for access to information from Canada where chatbot help a lot, I mean, for accessing the public information, 24 hours, 7 days. And also, I mean, another example from UK about the assistance in juridical space. Challenges, I believe we have spoken a lot about the challenges. I will not repeat here what it is has been already said, but you have a list of challenges that we have to mitigate, of course. Speaking about AI for the Moroccan case, I believe we have had this morning the NDM report, I mean model, NDM model and NDM. Yeah, for Morocco, and I was happy to learn from Dr. Fikrat that the AI has been used, in fact, for analyzing the data collected from people who participated in the discussion about it. Then I was proposing this; it should be used, but in fact it was used, and I was happy to learn today, this morning, that it was used perfectly. But I mean, AI for this model could be also used in the different sector that, as mentioned, as priority sector for Morocco. For transportation, AI has a tremendous role, I mean, for enhancing transportation, for education as well as we have mentioned also this morning, in this session, for healthcare and others. About digital technology and digital transformation. Okay, I take my hat of digital transformation, and I look at the regional level how it looks like. I mean, we speak about digital government, and AI will help digital government for sure. And this is a kind of analysis taken from considering the DESA e-government index and e-participation index. And here you have a look on the Arab region, basically the Arab region, and we can see that Morocco is currently in the middle in terms of indicators in the region. It comes after the GCC country and Tunisia. I mean, in both indicator. However, if we look at, I want to give you some bright images about Morocco and how you are doing. In fact, when we take into account your development level, the development level translated by GDP, here we can see that Morocco is doing relatively well, relatively as the average of countries which have the same level of development in terms of GDP. For example, basically these are the e-government index reflected with GDP, and we can see that Morocco, it is really on the line, which means that it is in the middle. I mean, according to the level of development, Morocco is doing quite well. And in open data, it is doing very good as compared to the level of development in the country. For e-participation, it is almost also at the middle level. For the digital transformation, Morocco has adopted many strategies for digital transformation. The last one is the Horizon 2025, and which is, in fact, which was adopted in 2020. And of course, AI will support very much the implementation of this digital transformation strategy. We cannot say it has, I mean, it will achieve both objectives. AI will support both objectives. For AI in open government in Morocco, I mean, open government in Morocco is adopted. I mean, Morocco is one of the 3 countries in the Arab region who are really binded to the open government partnership, and they became member of this partnership in 2018. They have adopted since 2018 2 action plan, and the last was between 2021, 2023. And open data, they have a very good open data program in a way, and a good portal, and they have also, you have also developed a kind of portal for the access to information and to have to receive a complaint from citizens. AI will support all of them. I mean, I cannot anti-corruption. It supports citizen engagement, it supports management of citizen requests that comes to the portals, and it will also, using this portal, we can implement a chatbot to support the access to information and the complaint. And by that, I would like to thank you, and I would like also to thank Jamat Al-Akhawayn for inviting me to this presentation. Thank you.
Dr. Iobi. Oops. Now we are opening the session to questions and answers. Would you like to join us? Come up, Suzanne. And I guess we'll go as long as Rana lets us go. We are now renting the stage from discussion group 7. So, do we have a mic around? Do we have questions? You have a mic. Do we have a mic out here? You have a question. All right, one question.
Yesterday.
I can give you.
Can you bring her up again?
Oh yeah, she's
oh,
she's
there she is. That's right.
Thank you. Thank you for these great presentations. And my question is about the rankings. We presented some rankings, situations. Do you think that one of the reasons why the MENA countries, and let's say North African countries, are not well ranked compared to European or North American countries is because the research ecosystem is not well developed? Because when you look to research, we look to publications, we find many studies related to what's being in the United States, in Canada, in different countries. But we find also less studies in our countries. So do you think that there is a need from our governors, policymakers, to rethink maybe one of the strategies to enhance collaborations between researchers, policymakers, to bring new ideas and so on. So maybe just to think about this. Thank you.
Anyway, your question is for a specific person or?
No, it's in general. Really take your time. So
well, I suppose since you're talking about rankings and the government survey is clearly a ranking tool on e-government development, I'll cover that part. I'm not disputing your statement because it's pretty generic and broad, so there might be merit to it, but I would just share the methodology to a government survey. It has 3 components. One is online survey index, which we assess UNDESA every 2 years with the help of volunteers, an army of volunteers actually online, and we make sure that at least there's one country representative at least, and there are two people assessing each country. Minimum, sometimes even more. So we're covering the languages, we're covering the nationality, we're trying to make it at least 2 people per country to do it. That's online survey segment of it, which goes for this year, for example, it was over to 180 questions that researchers go through and assess the portals, government websites and portals for availability of certain functions, information, things. So it's yes or no questions, basically. But people go and check over 180 questions, one by one. So it's not like there's a bias against one country again versus another. It's a very methodical process to go with. The other 2 components come from data from ITU, and countries report their own indicators on mobile broadband, internet coverage, for example, and so forth, which goes into ITU indicator. And the other one comes on a human capital index, comes from UNESCO and UNDP when UNESCO data is not available. This is, again, countries reporting to it. We always encourage countries to make their data updated with these organizations because we're taking the latest available at the moment of the survey end. So from that perspective, I don't think that we bias the ecosystem results towards any of the country or continent. It's done methodically the same way for everyone. And resulting rankings is actually a standardized process. We're normalizing the scores statistically, and then we're pushing to the scale of 0 to 1, which provides the ranking. The details on the methodology is available in every publication, and the upcoming one will have that too. Yeah. If others would like to add?
I would, may I?
Yes,
okay. I would like to add other elements that I think that why we are not really good in this. There is, let me return back to the issue of governance. I mean, we have serious problem in governance in the system, in our system. Governance by that, governance, I mean by that the coordination between entity, between it's not we don't have to take it political. Let us take it more governance process. I mean the administrative process, the coordination between different stakeholders. I mean in the Arab region, wherever we are looking at, I mean at ESCWA we made study in different domain related to digital transformation or to innovation and research and development and all of these, all over the places we have an issue with the coordination between the different stakeholders. There is repetition of work. There is no coordination. There is we rebuild the story each time. We don't take into account what has been done before in order to enhance it. There is a lot of, I mean, I call it this institutional, and for that reason I stress the issue that institutional dimension is very weak in the Arab region. I mean, in all countries. I mean, not the one country. I mean, and the governance, how we make the mechanism for coordination, for coordinate, and we don't interact with each other as we should. I was really amazed this morning by the new development model that was adopted and how the different stakeholders coordinated the work together and they come up with this model. It's really a very good experience and we have to repeat it. This is one, I believe this is one factor. You mentioned research and development. I agree with you. Research and development in the Arab region is very weak. Is very weak. If we speak about research and development in general, not necessarily related to digital transformation, but digital transformation is one of the factors, is one of the sectors that are affected by R&D. And we are really weak. I mean, the spending, it's not the only factor. The spending on R&D, and here I have my hat as innovation. The research and development spending from the government is very weak in the region. And also, I mean, researcher and professor, I cannot generalize, but most of the time the indicator shows that they don't make enough research. I mean, the university professor, they are spending more of their time towards making lectures rather than to make research activity. And I became from research background, I mean, and we didn't make research very much. We made applied research or whatever you call it. But I mean, this is a very important issue. I will stop here.
Thank you.
Ms. Konover, do you have anything to add?
I don't think she hears you.
Oh. Oh, I did. Ms. Konover, do you have anything to add?
Echoing, joining in, thank you.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, I can,
okay.
But nothing specific to add on this.
All right.
Thank
Does
you.
anyone have a question for Katya Konova? All right. I'm going to have to call the discussion panel to an end. I've been given the time. And if you, I beg of you to meet with the participants afterwards if you have additional questions to ask. Unfortunately, we can't get to Belgium, I suppose, and, but I thank you all for attending, and I hope it was an informative session for you. Thank you very much, and thank you to the participants.
Everybody, we have literally a 5-minute break. I hate to say it. Because we have a very, very tight time.